talk show about the profession of pharmacy.
Let's get back to TWIRx.
And now, here's our host and founder of the Pharmacy Podcast Network, Todd Eury.
Hey, welcome to This Week in Pharmacy. It is a great week in pharmacy. We are deep into 2026. Can you believe it's already we're on the eve of June 2026. June's always my favorite month. It's the kickoff of my favorite season. Summertime. I hope you are experiencing some good summer. I am getting frustrated. We have a pool. It's expensive to upkeep. If you guys, anybody has a pool out there, heated, thank the goodness, because in southwestern Pennsylvania, the weather is very all over the map, cold in the evening sometime. And my birthday, June 30th. So June is a great month. Father's Day is in June. We're headed out to vacation. Hope that you are getting some vacation this summer. We were just at McKesson Idea Share, and what an amazing time that we had in Denver. Shout out to our listeners. If you didn't get a chance to go, we're going to have a 4-part series. The McKesson Idea Share podcast press coverage starts next week. Thank you to Independent Pharmacy Cooperative, IPC, and the AAPA buying group for sponsoring our podcast press coverage. We have a big show today to share with you. I want to start out with TWIRx news and get into this. This just came out today. More PBMs file lawsuits against Tennessee over a bill that is banning ownership of stores. So let's get this straight. PBMs that can't get their way and they cannot compete financially. Cannot compete. Listen to this, Wall Street. PBMs, Aetna, CVS Health, Express Scripts, Optum, they cannot compete, they're saying, unless they own pharmacies. They're basically saying if we can't be the insurer that makes the decisions of what pharmacy our patients go to, if we can't steer patients, if we can't make pricing differentials in reimbursement, if we can't reimburse our own pharmacies differently than our independents that are out there or different chains that aren't in their networks, if we can't control everything about pharmacy benefit management and pharmacy services, then we're going to sue you. And they're the PBMs and the lobbying groups that are so powerful with multi-millions of dollars at their disposal, is suing Tennessee because they want to own the entire game. They want the insurance. They want the pharmacies. The new suit now means that there's going to be some scrutiny on the bill that was signed into law by Governor Bill Lee in May, and it faces 3 separate legal challenges with a likelihood that they will be consolidated into one lawsuit. In 2025, Arkansas passed a similar ban and faces legal challenges from the same companies and associations, and a judge ultimately consolidated the case into one single lawsuit, which makes sense. Tennessee co-ownership ban, called the PHARMACYPBM Act, came after lawmakers pushed the state's Commerce and Insurance Department to audit all 3 state PBMs. The probe found that many of the reimbursed affiliated pharmacies, which in some cases they owned at significantly higher rates than they did non-affiliated pharmacies, often independently owned. I don't understand how this is even making court. This should be thrown out. And the judge should say, if you guys keep pressing this, I'm going to bring criminal charges against the PBMs because of how you've cheated the state Medicaid systems and the reimbursement of how the taxpayer in Tennessee is not getting their money's worth because it's being sucked up into CVS Health's profits. This is horrible. So I hope this is knocked down. We have to keep our eyes on it. Go look for this article. It's put out by the Tennessee Lookout. and be aware and call your own state representatives and bring this to their attention, please. All right, next up on TWIRx News from Drug Channels, Blink Insights, the questions manufacturers wish they had asked before selecting a patient services partner. Take a look at this. This is very interesting. The expansion of treatment care, the expansion of pharmacies partnering or owning their own primary care. They hire nurse practitioners. Dig into this. A quote, if you pursue the websites for leading solutions, they all essentially make the same claims. While the industry has coalesced around marketing the same value proposition, there is a big difference in actual capabilities, which buyers often find difficult to discern. Over the past decade, we have grown BlinkRx to support more than 50 brands, and we have powered multiple blockbuster launches. Based on the needs of our many customers, we invested $750 million into our technology platform, built a specialized team over 1,000 employees, and established the largest and most robustly integrated pharmacy network in patient services industry. This goes on to ask the questions that can the platform identify and offer the lowest available patient price, cash, or covered across all payers within minutes of receiving the prescription, and why that matters. This is a great article from a reliable source that digs into the pharmaceutical supply chain and ecosystem from Drug Channels. Look it up, drugchannels.net. This just came out today, Friday, June 26, 2026. Continuing with TWIRx News from Pharmacy Times, it says OTC naloxone expands access, but cost and distribution gaps still limit overdose prevention. Over-the-counter status primarily streamlines procurement and redistribution of nonprofits and public agencies, while out-of-pocket costs continue to suppress pharmacy-based purchasing among high-risk individuals. It goes on to say that the geographic and logistical gaps, especially in rural areas, necessitate hyper-convenient access models such as vending machines, repurposed newspaper boxes, and routine kit distribution in clinical settings. You know, the whole concept of getting OTC and access to naloxone, I wish we could align more so with our community pharmacies, and maybe those distribution points would be outside of a community pharmacy and a vending machine type. What is your ideas around this? Go look this article up. Once again, this is from Pharmacy Times. Over-the-counter naloxone expands access, but cost and distribution gaps still limit overdose prevention. Take a look at that. Important. Next up on TWIRx from the Houston Chronicle, it says America's compounding pharmacy surge in outrunning regulations. Experts want tougher oversight. Now, Pharmacy Podcast Network has a partner, the Alliance for Pharmacy Compounding, the APC. Shout out to Scott and his team. I'd like to hear from Scott on this article specifically, but I know from following this that 100% of compounding pharmacies over the entire history of compounding have not been perfect, and in fact have been brought up on charges for not following the necessary safety protocols for poisoning people and having something happen in a case that came out of New England years ago. However, the regulations on compounding pharmacy in this specific article, it says that state power is limited, especially for compounding pharmacies that dispense drugs nationwide. A pharmacy can face disciplinary action in one state over quality problems, but continue to ship drugs to other states where it has a license. Now here's the thing. This article is brought up in authored and written. And if you can see through the lines and read through the lines, you know that there are lobbying organizations that are hired by the manufacturers who do not want to see compounding exist or be able to deliver the services that they do. And it's a balancing act. The tiny little microscopic percentage of compounding pharmacies that haven't done what is right from a safety perspective, giving the opportunity to grab onto that line of thinking and an argument against other compounding pharmacies. And it goes on to say, there's a quote that says, if a compounder distributes those compounded drugs to multiple states, it can be really difficult to gather information about the harm and quality issues associated with those drugs and then connect them to the compounder and take action to help patients. So it can exacerbate an already serious problem, but it's a potential serious problem. Statistically, it's not a serious problem. Compounding pharmacies are upstanding for the most part. Majority of them are standing, and I understand the oversight. I think a lot of the oversight and a lot of the checks and balances comes from within anyway. And I hope that the APC and pro compounding out there can reach out to the FDA and to organizations that are worried, and let them see the data, let them see their reporting, let them see how careful they are with sterile compounding. But take a look at this article. Go look this up. Put in the word compounding pharmacy in your Googler, and then search the news section, and you'll come to the Houston Chronicle. America's compounding pharmacy surges, outrunning regulations. Experts want tougher oversight. And like I said, it's probably more of the lobbying groups for the manufacturers that want to see the money come back to the manufacturer, and not the customization of our compounding pharmacies. Hey, we have a great show today. I'm excited that you're here, that you're listening. Please, if you have something dynamic, if you have something special, if there's a special story that you'd like to share, a pharmacy technician, a pharmacy owner, a pharmacist, a specialty pharmacy, we have a new series coming out in specialty pharmacy called Specialty Care Close to Home. And this is going to feature insights into healthcare systems, specialty pharmacy specifically, building them, making them more profitable, the pitfalls. Excited to be working with the Allegheny Health Network out of Pittsburgh on the opening. Shout out to Dr. Laura Mark. And then we have assistance and support from several organizations. Can't wait to get this series out to you to listen. Today on TWIRx, we have a absolute juggernaut superstar. I hope you know about this man. Dr. Brad Hart from Forest Park Pharmacy is joining us. We'll also be talking with Dr. Colby Burns. Dr. Colby Burns is the president of the Psychedelic Pharmacists Association, and his sidekick, the Batman and Robin of the Psychedelic Pharmacists Association, Dr. Andy Krut. I'm excited to bring this to the Pharmacy Podcast Network. We have to nail down the endocannabinoid system with the usage of THC and CBD in therapy, and then the side of where psychedelics play in, how this can impact PTSD, help out veterans, help out people with other neurological disorders. This is an exciting time in pharmacy. If you're listening and you're interested in some of these on-the-edge sciences that need more regulation from a national perspective, so we can get through that as quickly as possible, to get this into studies, to get this in the hands of our physician and pharmacist teams for the issues that they're facing. But I don't want you to miss this opportunity to listen in. We are excited that you're here. We're excited about what's happening in our pharmacy industry. And you are listening to TWIRx. Featured guest, Brad Hart, pharmacy owner, Forest Park Pharmacy. Welcome to TWIRx, Brad.
Thank you for having me. Awesome to finally get to chat.
Finally, I have been stalking you on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. I just love your content. And you know what is most impressive to me? The listeners might not realize this, but you're putting out a ton of content and it's very timely. Sometimes you're more of a news source for me than just the announcements that you're making. Talk to me. Let's start in social media because, I don't want to sound like the old guy, but I am. The internet, when I was in the telecom era, from 1996 to 2003, zero internet, that we were able to get into social, and then Facey Spaces came about, MySpace and in Facebook. And now, of course, it's the whole other side where there's generations that don't remember not having social media, which before we started recording, I was thinking of news and how I'm not going to traditional news sources anymore. I'm checking Twitter first. I'm checking Instagram. I'm checking LinkedIn. And then if something pops up, sometimes I'll go out into Google and verify it. It's just not someone's opinion or something. But talk to me about the leverage of social media and how you've used that not only to brand yourself and help your own pharmacy, but more importantly, what you've done for the whole industry.
Sure. So for us, social media is core to the business. That's the only thing that ever worked for us as far as getting customers into the store. Well, I started it sort of out of desperation. We were going for about 4 months, and then I fired all the insurance companies like I talk about, and most of my customers walked out. So we were just like hanging in the store with no customers coming by. And I was like, I guess we got to start shooting. I didn't want to do videos. It's not like something I had ever aimed for. It wasn't on my agenda, but it needed to be done. So we just started talking about what was going on with us. And luckily, the PBMs and the way that they pay and the way that they charge payers is so insane that it kind of went viral right from the beginning. About 2 weeks into making daily videos, that's what I've been doing for I don't know, 2.5 years now. About 2 weeks in, I had my biggest video ever. And so that just changed the way that we could do everything. If I had something, vitamins suddenly started selling, any product, there was an avenue to reach people. So I couldn't stop. That's everything that we have. And I did, every kind of content I could think of. I did what I initially did, which was the insane prices. I don't know if it was teriflunomide. I can't remember which one it was, but it's, $2,400 with insurance, $17 with us. And I just found hundreds of those in the Medicare data. So I could do those forever. And then when I ran out of those, I just started looking for other stuff. And that's how I got into like the daily news type of content. There's tons of wildly interesting things, every day. You go to the Department of Justice website, there's a $100 million fraud that they got.
Yeah.
So there's just unlimited fascinating things in here. And for me personally, with the store, also doing this content has allowed me to stay on top of what's going on. If there's a new trend or something going on, I'm aware of it immediately because I have to spend time researching every single day to put out content that's interesting. So I'm right on top of it. So it's been really helpful for us to know what's happening, what's changing, where it's going. And for example, ivermectin was huge for that. We were right on top of ivermectin. We had no idea who was looking for ivermectin. In Texas, it's over the counter, which is what I'm talking about, by the way. Mm-hmm. But we had no idea what was going on. We just knew that it happened, and people online were asking about it. So we did it, and we ended up being the first in Texas to do it, and that's our biggest seller by a mile now. And it's not something I anticipated. It was just something I was aware of because every single day I'm logging on, looking for news, thinking of content, and it's been critical for us to survive for sure.
Just awesome. If you're listening in your car, you're walking, you're not able to see the screen, we'll have links in the show note to take you to the YouTube so that you can see some of what we'll be sharing on screen. I'm at forestparkpharmacy.com, and known as the cost plus and compounding pharmacy out of Fort Worth, Texas. The content that you're generating is, like you were saying, it's twofold. It's teaching you what's going on, but then now you're teaching the nation what's going on. This is a mission now because it's impacting so much more than just Fort Worth, Texas community. You talk to me about how what you've done in efforts to educate, how that has in turn impacted you and your reach throughout the nation. So are you also licensed in other states where you're serving other patients because of the popularity of the content that you're generating?
Yeah, we got licensed. We're trying to get as many as we can, but we're still sort of bootstrapping here. So it's like we had a license a month or something, you know. But yeah, we've expanded to about 10 states now, and people ask us for new stuff all the time because social media is nationwide.
Yep.
So we're getting requests all the time and just trying to get everywhere we can. But yeah, it's the education aspect of it. Like I said, it's been educational for me because I get on and I see some article about you know, whatever it is, like an audit that they did on a PBM in some other state, and I look through that data and see that they're getting, like, you know, Virginia is a great one. They have all that incredible information about how terrible Virginia is doing with their rebates, how much they're paying for generics. And then that shows me a whole new avenue to look for new information. Where did they get this information? How did they find it? You know, can I find that for my state? But I'm not the only one that's educational for, you know. HHS reached out to me after I did some of these originally and asked, you know, where are you getting this data? And I'm like, from you guys. You know? It's on your website. You know, and the guys that are working aren't the guys that made the website. So it's like everybody's trying to find all this information because the PBM scene is changing so fast. You know, they're so motivated to find new avenues that if you haven't been there for decades following it every day, you're not going to know where to look. So it's been really interesting. And, you know, I got to do the Maha movie, which was great. And when they flew me out to Utah to record a little bit with that, which was, I've never done anything like that. That was awesome. But he told me that senator from Arizona, retired senator from Arizona, is the one that put him onto me, which is like, God, I can't believe that, like, serious people are finding this content and enjoying it. And it's mind blowing.
That is so awesome to hear. And I want to give a shout out to pharmacists that are listening, even our technicians that are listening, our pharmacy owners, people in the industry. You take the time to put good, reliable, trusted content out, and it becomes a calling card for you in your career, for your business, for your pharmacy. And I notice the organizations that are not using social media to be forthright and transparent, and it's telling in and of itself, you know, that they're hiding behind their own facts and they're putting themselves out of business in many cases in the whole CVS Health world, where they've closed pharmacies down just based on their own PBM business models. And I wanted to ask you, when did you become a cash-based pharmacy in the Fort Worth area? When did that start?
So we opened up with the plan to just be a normal retail pharmacy. We didn't really know at all what was going on with the reimbursement. We just knew my wife had a good skill. We were here. Let's make it happen. And after 4 months, we looked at our data and we had averaged 2% under our cost of the drugs on our reimbursement. So we were losing 2%. It was not like it was paying everything and we were under 2% there, but like literally for 4 months, 2% under the cost on our drugs. And it was like, we weren't even close to profitable at that point. So it couldn't work, you know, and the pharmacy owners that have been in it for a long time sort of can see it coming, and they have a base of patients that they can manipulate. They could say no to this prescription, yes to this prescription. As a new pharmacy, we had none of that option or understanding. So we were just filling everything and losing money, you know. So there was no option. We just went, we've got to make the switch fire all of them. It was cheaper. We could see in our own data that it was cheaper for patients to pay cash.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like, it made perfect sense to us. But we lost most of our customers. We explained to them so thoroughly, big long write-ups for patients with complicated profiles. Here's what you're going to save on this drug. Here's what you save on this drug. And, they didn't care. It was like, oh, no insurance. I'm going to go down the street. So we lost 70% of our customers, and we had to begin to figure out how to explain that this was good for them. And, that's where I got into all the information that you see in the daily posts now. But yeah, the cash thing, it wasn't a plan. It was just a necessity because the PBMs have become so greedy. And luckily their greed is what allows this to exist. If they were, manipulating all of this and not nearly as greedy, then they could get away with it.
True.
But since they're so greedy that my price is able to be cheaper, even though they're collecting $1,000 a month from people, that's what allows us to exist.
The reason why I asked is I want to document someday and come up with maybe a blog post, turn it into a podcast discussion to understand the rise of the cash-based pharmacy that's really starting to take fire now. When I was serving the board of directors for the Pennsylvania Pharmacists Association years and years ago, there was a pharmacy student that had a crazy idea to build a cash-based pharmacy. And I think at the time he was P3. A shout out to Dr. Kyle McCormick out of Pittsburgh. And he built and released and launched on March 20th of 2000, Blueberry Pharmacy, which was a cash-based pharmacy. And his wholesaler friends, people that knew him, fellow pharmacists out of pharmacy owners out of Pittsburgh were all like, that's really cool, but you're crazy. I don't know how you're going to do this. And he and his family, and thank the Lord that his wife was a pharmacist and able to work for a different entity and have income for their family. But they took punches right on the chin for quite some time in getting it up and running and being told that it wasn't going to work. And now it's on fire. And now his clients and his patients and his community love him and love the being able to staple the way that they want to do things and the way they want to treat the customer and the way that, and I'm just like, damn, that's freaking cool. So from your part of this very special membership, this very special partnership, but do you have any metrics? Like do we know how many there are out there, these cash-based pharmacies? I'm sure no one has an exact number, but what do you know about it?
Yeah, so the cost plus stuff, Kyle is definitely the first one that I knew of. I mean, Cuban went big, but I think Kyle was before him. Kyle kind of was the innovator of the idea. And it's awesome that we have him. He's fearless. He moves forward with his own ideas. I wish I had that. I need a trailblazer to follow in the footsteps of, but his site is the only place I know of that lists them. He has a website to list cost plus pharmacies, costpluspharmacies.com, I think is what it is. And I send patients to that all the time. It used to be in my phone tree. I'm not sure if it still is, but when I went really viral, I had people calling from all over the country. And I had to put a thing like, if you're from outside of Texas, don't call us. Go to costpluspharmacies.com and look for one in your state. Unfortunately, if you look at that, most states don't have one. When we started, I think there were 10 cost plus pharmacies in the country, and some of those were kind of fake ones. It's like, just kind of pretending to do it, but not really doing it. But I know Pennsylvania now. Kyle has put out a lot of pharmacists that are opening cost plus pharmacies. The Freedom Pharmacy is a really interesting one because he used to run the insurance pharmacy next door and ended up dumping that one and moving to cost plus only. But yeah, it's growing, but it's still very, very small. I don't know. I'd be surprised if there were more than 20 in the country.
Yeah, we're going to do a follow-up on that, Brad, and try to bring more light because I want to be encouraging to pharmacy owners out there who want to break away. A pharmacy owner out of Kentucky has 3 pharmacies, and he's going to dedicate one or has dedicate one to cash based only, and he wants to see how fast it takes to get above the red and move into being able to spread it like a virus to the other pharmacies and get it going. Mark Cuban, Cost Plus Drugs. When I learned about Dr. Alex reaching out to Mark Cuban from a cold email, and it was blessed and they moved forward. We did an interview with Dr. Alex on January 27th of 2021. And so I absolutely agree with you that that Kyle McCormick and his team were the first, to put the flag in the nation to disrupt the stranglehold that the three largest PBMs have on our industry, and are taking the joy out of pharmacy and pharmacy ownership and being a pharmacist and all facets of everything. And I did not trust Mark Cuban. So when I first heard about this and I interviewed this guy, he's so intelligent. Dr. Alex is amazing. And initially, after that interview, I made blog posts. I did some LinkedIn, and I wasn't being disrespectful. I wasn't being aggressive, but what I was being is very informative, because I was saying to the pharmacy owners, hey, listen, here's another rich, powerful man out there that's wanting to get into the PBM space probably and moving. And I was not trusting. And now that I see this since 2021, 5 years later, and I see Mark Cuban showing up on interviews that he doesn't have to be on because of how busy he is. He's showing up on news organizations. He doesn't have to be there. And when he's talking, he's not really talking just about his business. He's talking about the ecosystem. So I finally trust where he has really been an accelerator in helping the public to slow down for a second and understand what's been in front of you, what's been hidden from the public for so long. And when you couple that with PBM reform happening in so many different of the states of wins, especially like Tennessee and Arkansas, where you can't own pharmacies and own a PBM in the same entity. And who knows if, the teeth on that is going to rip it apart or not. It's to foresee. But what do you think of that whole dynamic, Mark Cuban, Cost Plus Drugs, and what's potentially there to help us, transform the nation's medication needs?
Yeah, Mark Cuban is the leading voice by a mile, and he's all in. I'm a Mavs fan. I live in Dallas, so I've been with Mark Cuban for decades now. And it was interesting seeing him go into pharmacy, and then me being like, that's neat. And then me getting into pharmacy and being like, that's neat, but I'm not like competing with him. And now me and Mark Cuban have this exact concept going. So I'm seeing Mark Cuban all day, every day. And, but he's great. I mean, he has fantastic information. His team is digging in everywhere. He can talk to CEOs.
Yep. He
can get in front of Congress. He can, he shows up on TWIRx. He's doing broadcasts with Trump. So it's like he's doing an amazing job of getting it out there. And he's talking about what the challenge is. The real challenge for cost plus pharmacies like mine is getting it to the patients, because we still live in a world where almost everybody has employer-sponsored insurance. So people aren't choosing their insurance. So he has to convince the CEOs. He has to convince the people determining the benefits that they should make a change, because that's really where the power is in making a change right now. I'm direct to consumer because I don't have, the ability to deal with CEOs and get in front of those people for that type of stuff. But he is. And so hopefully he can start to turn some minds and let them see that they shouldn't be dealing with those predatory companies managing their entire set of benefits.
Yep.
Yeah,
it's the psychology, brilliant, intelligent psychology. And you can back up 30, 40 years to take the public and make them think that they need insurance all the time. And go back to Kyle. Kyle McCormick says, when you go to get your oil changed, are you pulling out your car insurance or are you just paying for the maintenance? And that's a really, really good point. But the insurance industry knows damn well what they're doing. And over those 40 years, and it's accelerated over the last 5, it's been you need insurance for everything. And if you don't need it, if you can't have it because it's too expensive, then you better take out a, what's the plans called that you put money in and then you can buy OTC and stuff. What are those plans called?
Crowd share ones.
Yeah, exactly. So we have that insurance industry has brainwashed the public in not understanding what insurance was really meant for, which were, life-altering, financial clobbering situations that you couldn't afford if you broke your leg or you were in a car accident or you came up with a horrible disease, cancer or something, where the influx of expense was just going to crush you. So obviously insurance is where it belongs. But the average consumer that walks up to the prescription counter without even thinking about it is ready with their license and ready with their insurance card and ready to process. And if everybody would just take a time out for a second and say, well, what would it be like? How expensive would this be on my family if I paid for this cash, if I paid for this just myself? And if they did that analysis over a year and looked at their deductibles and looked at their payments, and they'd be paying less money. And it's just like, wow, we need Brad on a megaphone, and we need to get you in touch with iHeartMedia and SiriusXM and create a Mark Cuban Brad, Brad show to get you two guys announcing it to the consumer. But we really need the heart in all of this to show. And that's why I'm so excited about you. Every time you talk, I see the passion come out. Sometimes you're even more excited one day than the next, probably because of the bullshit that's being pulled from the insurance world. But that passion is what people want. They don't want to listen to a pharma commercial about butterflies on the screen and you're running and you're jogging and you have to take this medication and just this. I'm just so tired of the fakeness of healthcare. So when we have healthcare providers that are stepping up, taking time out of your day, investing in education, and then that turns into advertisement, I don't think there's anything better in the advertising and marketing world when you're doing it out of your heart, knowing it's better for a nation, an ecosystem, and a consumer, a patient consumer that doesn't know any better.
Yeah, you said something really interesting that I found to be really true there. It's the fear of what something might cost is really what drives people to this. A lot of my videos, I'll say something about how insurance makes it more expensive. This would be cheaper without insurance. And then somebody will say, yeah, that's all great until you get cancer and it bankrupts you, and that's that part right there. That catastrophic cost fear is what really gets people. They can't imagine not being able to take care of it. And especially when they have a family. If you have kids and you imagine yourself risking cancer treatment for your kids because you don't want to pay the premiums, that's the insidious part. And what drives me insane about that argument is that the cost is caused by the insurance. We have no idea what healthcare costs without that bottomless pit of crowd-funded money that the insurance companies will pay for things because they want the fear. The more expensive it is, the better it is for the insurance companies. And that's really what I want people to understand is the insurance company created the fear. It would be affordable, not cheap, of course. It would be affordable because there's no other way for them to get money if they had to get the money directly from us. And it just drives me nuts when I see the fear driving it, and the fear is driven by the insurance companies. I just absolutely hate that.
What I like is that we're getting more and more detailed and exposed information with the entire ecosystem. Shout out to Antonio Chacha and his work. Shout out to Greg Reibold and his work with APCI and IPC's work and digging into the data. And here's what I think is going to happen. And I'm sure someone's going to take advantage of this. If you took a region of prescriptions in a specific geographic area by geofencing or zip code, and you collected the cost of medications and then the true cost of medication, although that in itself can be kind of a mystery, and you strip away all of the insurance, bucket of what is paid out is over here, the cost, and you were able to be able to balance of seeing, throw it into AI or something, ask them to do an analysis, but massive amounts of data, massive amount of prescriptions, how many times people are pulling their insurance card and paying a deductible versus just paying cash for the prescription. And then where was the true savings? Was the true savings in cost plus model, or was the true savings in insurance? And insurance always saying, hey, we're going to save you money this year. Hey, employer, we got a new program and our TPA just came up with this new roller coaster that's going to take this over here and this over here. Brad, I worked with a group of pharmacy owners out of Ohio that came out with a PBM, which was the first of its kind. This is back 20 years ago, APRO-RX out of Ohio. And we went to George Howe, or George Junior Republic, which was up in northern Pennsylvania, northwestern Pennsylvania. And what it was a home it was a campus with 2,000 troubled male youth. And it was just for them. They were sent from all over the nation. It involved some counseling and some more of a religious pull, and just surrounding these kids with hope and with a place to stay and kind of rehabilitation. And they had all of their prescription information. They had it on the table. The analysis was done. And I was so excited that I got to team up with him. I did the proposal. We did the data collection. We were sitting in front of the CFO and sitting in front of the nurse that was part of the decision-making. And we presented them with a $1.6 million savings on everything that they're doing, and how 340B was playing into it and all this stuff. And it was freaking amazing. It went silent. We didn't hear from them for 3 months. Finally, APRO gets a email back. Hey, listen, we're going to re-sign with CVS Health because they're giving us a $850,000 rebate up front. And like it made us go crazy, because we're like, where's the rest of your money? Like why would you? But no, they signed a 3-year agreement because it was a safety thing. That CFO was like, you know what, we could really use that money right now for this, this, and this, not realizing that they're keeping you hostage to a system that is benefiting only their organization in the form of profits and control, and keeping you on that. And it did that. That opened my eyes. And this probably happened maybe about 15 years ago, but that really opened my eyes to the need for PBM reform and the tricks that are played on organizations that are fragile in revenue to keep it going, to keep their services going for these young boys, to keep them, tied into medication. And that's a hard thing to swallow and get the consumer, the business consumer or the non-business consumer. And you'd think that CFO would be intelligent enough to see through it. And I'm sure that he did see through it. But regardless, it was $850,000 check.
Yeah, that's an incredible story to see that savings number, and then they still choose the alternative, which is, it's just unbelievable. And that's the type of thing I was talking about with Mark Cuban. He gets at that type of meeting way more often than other people are able to get. He gets in front of those CEOs, those CFOs, and I'm sure he's seen that exact type of thing just a million times. And the thing that those guys can't see, that it's hard for me to explain to them, is that this story that broke with Hunterbrook Media about the GPOs and the way that they were stealing the rebates. That's the type of thing that the PBMs can do forever. They can just create an entity. They can find another hole. All this PBM reform, we can plug all the holes we've seen so far, but because of their position in the system, they can poke a new hole that we didn't imagine. And then 5 years from now, we're looking at the $100 million that they stole and creating new PBM reform to solve that problem, when really they don't need to be there at all. I don't know. It drives me insane to see that type of manipulation ability because of the vertical integration and their position in the stack of that.
All right. So how is Forest Park doing now? Is this, you are on the water, you're chugging down the track? Is everything working right now in kind of you had to fire your patients off of insurance, and now talk to us about what's happening now.
Yeah. So we dumped them. It took us, I don't know, a little while. The compounded GLP-1s were happening right at that time, and that was when everybody discovered 503Bs, like, oh, that's a thing we can do, So that floated us for a little while. And the whole time I'm doing daily videos, so I'm just constantly adding patients during that. But like I said about the social media, because I had the ability to reach customers, people were seeing what I was saying. I had something, whatever the thing was. It was the compounded GLP-1s for a little while. It's ivermectin now. I always have, whatever the thing is, I have people that want it, that can float me while I add the patients. Our patient base now are like our core, low-cost, generic, recurring patients. That's finally gotten us to where it's like par. Like we've reached our minimum number that we need to float on that. And now I can try to grow. I'm trying to grow the compounding big time, which is tougher sell, because like for regular prescriptions, I have a really good angle with the cost plus. I can pitch something, but in compounding, everybody's cash price. So it's like, I got no angle there. I'm just trying normal stuff there. But yeah, the cost plus stuff, we finally reached bar, and thanks to social media, I've been able to survive to get there, because it's taken a long time. Every patient has to know the full story. Everybody has to understand who's charging the money. Why is it so expensive? Is it always going to be this expensive? They have to really understand the full ecosystem to appreciate using us. So it's been a real challenge, but luckily we survived and we made it to survivability now.
That's awesome. So when I just got back from Idea Share, McKesson's big independent community pharmacy show, and huge parts of the talk was programs that have nothing to do with prescription revenue, nothing to do with PBMs, nothing to do. So we're talking about skincare programs where they hire an esthetician. Now that becomes part of staff. We're talking about home care where they're doing new entities, a whole new entity that's home care, and they're doing, light cleaning, some shopping, some bathing, and then they're coupling that with what's now known as long-term care pharmacy at home, and they're getting reimbursed at long-term care rates. And then we're talking about contraception, where it's like now you're becoming the contraception center, where you advertise to the community, hey, you want education on birth control and family planning, where you need to go. So talk to me about, you've set the groundwork, you've set a common denominator that you will in the future. Now your baseline, you're able to build upon that. What other things are you thinking about that you could add to Forest Park Pharmacy in Impact, Fort Worth, Texas, but then, grow and possibly open up the next one?
Yeah, for us, like I said, compounding, we don't do sterile compounding. That would be great to be able to include sterile compounding, because that's still, I just see that that's going to last forever. Even though the GLP-1s have become available now, they become more affordable. I think that sterile compounding is going to be critical. Let's see, the vitamins, we do a bunch of vitamins, but only specific ones. Like I'm not able to, I'm not a big vitamin guy personally. So like if you're asking me to pitch why you need something, like I don't have an answer for you. I can only find like one or two that are really impactful for me, and that's what I can talk about. And that's of course the only thing that sells, because if somebody asks me a question about something else, I'm like, well, I don't know, man, you tell me why you want that.
That's a really good point. You're selling with sincerity. And it's like, hey, I take this liquid vitamin C that absorbs better into me, and it works for me because if I feel like I'm getting a cold and I double up on it, it helps. But there's a sincerity to that. That's why you're trusted. That's why pharmacists are trusted, because I meet so more pharmacists than ever where they're talking about what is happening to them personally. And then they're always saying, hey, listen, if you have questions about this, I'm going to either go get you answers, or I'm going to get a specialist, or I'm going to kind of dig down in this for you so that you're doing what's right. Because it's funny how the consumer thinks that if it's OTC, that there's no harm to it. Oh yeah, it's over the counter, so it doesn't really matter. And I'm like, no, dude, like things have become OTC and they used to be prescriptions, and you can't just, take whatever you want. And yeah, it's a world that if I think that if it worked for you, it's going to work for your patient, and it's something you're comfortable selling and making a profit off it. I would feel like crap if you're putting something out there that damn well is is not working, and there's an element of sincerity to that, Brad. So that's cool.
Yeah, and I think the thing that we need the most for us to connect with more patients is a better connection to a cash pay prescriber, a doctor that will see somebody one time, and what we have access to right now is the I forget direct primary care doctors.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's like a membership thing, which is great. It's a cash pay. That's how doctors want it to work. Is they see those patients consistently. They know your profile. They can talk to you. They can respond to you quickly. That's fantastic. But when I have people walk in, like, I need something, how can you help me with that? And I'm like, do you want to sign up for a membership, with a doctor? So I would like to find a way to get better access to a prescriber that can see them quickly. But in the doctor world, that doesn't seem to exist. The equivalent of cost plus pharmacy in the doctor world seems to be the direct primary care, which is membership based. So I'm working to try to see if I could find a way to connect with a cash pay. And the telehealth, that's kind of the answer to that, but it's not quite what a lot of people are looking for. Most of my patients are older. Getting on their phone and like having a video call is just not an option. So I don't know how I'm going to find that, but that's definitely the need for us right now.
Brad, it's so interesting to hear different pharmacy owners make different decisions for that opportunity. We've heard the trend, which came and went, by the way. I feel like I'm so old, but about 10 years ago, telehealth, telepharmacy, and then about 7 years ago, we saw the kiosk be put into the counseling room. It had a camera on it. It was all wired up. The blood pressure cuff, was there, everything in the seat. And then therefore you didn't have to frighten per se the older patient, that made it feel like it was a very healthcare driven transaction, and they didn't have to fire up their phone or anything. They just sat in the room. The door was shut. Either a technician sat in with them if they wanted, or it didn't, whatever was happening. They went through kind of and then that way the entity was being paid for the services, the physician that came online. And then the prescription was sent right to the pharmacy that they choose. And the first one that came up on the list was the pharmacy they're sitting in. So right. It's like there was that model. Then there's the model where we're hearing of pharmacy partnering with nurse practitioners, or hiring a nurse practitioner and growing services that are desperately needed probably in the community anyway. And it doesn't fit everything, but it fits like 80% of, what prescriptions will trickle down. And so, yeah, I think you're onto something, and layering what you've built so that you can stay profitable and keep growing. I want to see that happen, because I want to see the cash-based freedom model. It's freedom to just keep growing throughout the nation. I want to see it disrupt so badly that it's going to force, the insurance companies to pivot or do something different that brings things back to at least a middle point. Of the way it was 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things that's crazy to me about where it's headed, TrumpRx, I don't know if you look at that very much, but that's a bizarre one to me, because Amazon is kind of the elephant in the room with this cash pay thing. And Amazon is now the top of like every search on TrumpRx because they have the membership model on top of it. And they have their, I forget what their prescriber offices are called, but they're kind of exploding everywhere. So I'm really interested to see where they take everything. They're pushing all directions at all times. Amazon is,
I know.
So we'll be real interested to see. They started as the cash only, and then they added the insurance, and that just is a complication that I don't think most people appreciate, even at that scale. So we'll see how that shakes out for them. But they're definitely between them and Mark Cuban, the big shots are hearing the benefits of the cost plus model and the cash pay model. So I think we're going to be seeing some big steps.
Absolutely. We see that the local independent community pharmacy is leveraging that relationship and that knowledge and that trust that they're part of the community. And that still holds weight. That still holds, especially if you can back it up with some patient savings and some other programs that they're needing anyway. They need wound care. They need, like I was saying, contraception or skin care or whatever it is. But this has been awesome. I could talk to you for hours. We're out of time here on TWIRx, but promise me you're going to come back. Maybe we'll get a panel discussion of the top 10 cash-based pharmacies throughout the nation. And let's do, I want to do some cheerleading for you guys because you're doing work that's changing lives and it's changing markets, and it's trickling right now. It's just this slow little drip, but guess what? The river's coming and it's going to be a reckoning. So it's exciting to see you succeed. I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much for coming on TWIRx.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me, and love the chat, and can't wait to hear more.
Hey, shout out where people can follow you on the platforms too.
Yeah, we're at Forest Park Farm on everything. Forest Park Pharmacy, maybe on X. Yep, Forest Park Farm, and we're everywhere. Instagram actually banned me. I didn't mention that earlier. So,
no way.
Yeah, it was crazy. I had no warnings whatsoever. Just one day I woke up and it was like, this video's deleted, this video's deleted, this video's deleted. You're banned. Like one thing. Yeah, it was crazy, and I can't get it back. I don't know what. But so don't look for me on Instagram, but everywhere else.
We've heard that so many times with certified people that were talking about things that were absolutely factual, and they get banned from a platform because there's either an algorithm or somebody that doesn't understand what's being said, and they think it goes against the guidelines, and it's a public disservice, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, a robot banned me, so whatever.
Jeez. All right, we'll be right back with more TWIRx. Hang on.
As frontline healthcare providers, pharmacists like you understand the importance of personalized care, especially in acute pain management. Ural Pharma is dedicated to providing high-quality, generic products tailored to meet your patient's needs. The company aims to serve a diverse range of patient populations, including athletes recovering from intense training, weekend warriors managing minor injuries, and those seeking a practical and mess-free option for acute pain management. Keep Ural in your toolbox of pain management options and join the ranks of pharmacists leading the way in personalized care. To learn more about Ural Pharma and its products, including full prescribing information, boxed warnings, and important safety information, visit uralpharma.com. That's YARAL pharma.com, and connect with them on LinkedIn.
Hey, welcome back to TWIRx, This Week in Pharmacy. Excited to be here with Dr. Colby Burns and Dr. Andy Krut, PharmDs, and we're going to be jumping into the subject of psychedelics. But Andy, you are no new guy to the Pharmacy Podcast Network. What was your experience before?
Oh, it was great. I was here a little while ago talking about a survey that we're doing with the PPA. So glad to be back.
Thank you for coming back. Colby, you and I have been connected for on LinkedIn, I don't know, over 10 years. I've been a fan of yours and your research into the world of psychedelics, and I'm very proud to have you here on TWIRx. This will not be your last time, sir.
Well, thank you. It's really good to be here, Todd. And we have connected in the past. I don't think we met in person. I'm on the West Coast, but one
Sure.
of these days get to meet in person.
Yeah, we're going to get to a pharmacy conference, and we're going to definitely spend some time together digging into something that's fascinating. UC Berkeley News. This wasn't this week in pharmacy. This was actually a couple of weeks ago. But the article's title: "Tripping into Old Age: Can Psychedelics Protect the Aging Brain?" And the reason why not so much the article itself, because I didn't get a chance to really dive into it, but what I was excited about is when this becomes a science that is protected by evidence-based study, and now it's placed back into the hands of our physicians, and it's backed up, the therapy is backed up by a pharmacist who actually understands how psychedelics are impacting a person's brain and metabolization and the whole science behind it that you've always worked in the realm of pharmacological stuff. But Colby, give us an opening. What's the state of the nation of psychedelics in medicine?
Well, that's a good question. There's been a lot of progress in this area and a lot of enthusiasm for sure in the last 3 to 5 years, I would say. My area background is as a military veteran. I was the division officer of the outpatient pharmacy at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, which is one of the largest military treatment facilities in the country. And veteran population experiences a rate of PTSD, as we know, that's much higher than the general public. Major depressive disorder, anxiety disorders, sleep disorders, all kind of tie under that umbrella as well. And we see that there is a need for alternative therapies for veterans and even maybe some are active duty personnel if this is something that's ever opened up to them. I felt that the care that was being delivered, not to say anything about the individual providers, I don't mean to knock any healthcare providers or clinicians, but the actual options that we're providing to our veterans, to me, are not satisfactory for the most part. We know that with PTSD, only about 50% or less even will respond to conventional approaches. You know, if you look at specifically a veteran population, the response rate is less than 50%. We're talking more like 30% that even the VA recognizes in its official documents that there is not good outcomes for veterans obtaining care for PTSD. So that really launched my interest into this whole science, which has been around since the 1960s, even the 50s, if you go back far enough. A lot of this was buried by regulatory changes and policy changes. We saw the war on drugs under Richard Nixon in the 70s led to outlawing, many of these substances, putting them under Schedule 1 status. But there was this sort of renaissance that's taken place in the last 10 or 15 years that's brought these substances back to the forefront of medicine, and people are increasingly seeing them as legitimate therapeutic options. We're seeing more clinical trials perhaps than ever before on psychedelic substances. So definitely an area that a lot of people I think are interested in. It does seem like there's still some lingering stigma, especially among people that have medical licenses, because we're still talking largely about substances that are illegal. And certainly neither Andy or I are here to say that people should be taking this substance or make any kind of stance or argument about federal policy. We're just here to talk about the science and about our organization specifically.
Yeah, excited to have you both here, Andy. It's great to connect with you again. I've been watching you and stalking you both on LinkedIn, so when you post stuff, I'm excited to kind of get an update. So the frustration from my perspective as the consumer, and when I talk to lay people, talk to people that aren't pharmacists or pharmacy technicians, people were like, "You're a pharmacist." And I'm like, no. I just hang out with pharmacists so much in text that I can speak the speak. But something that frustrates me is when pharmacists have been talking about things in psychedelics specifically the endocannabinoid system and cannabis and THC and the balance of CBD and the difference and where it could be applied and topicals. And so they've been talking about this for 20 years. Timothy Leary and Richard Alpert, both psychologists, Dr. Leary, Dr. Alpert, were part of enormous amounts of research money in the 1960s that really started to dig into trauma, depression, PTSD, alcoholism, and how is that the substance is called psilocybin within the psychedelic world. Okay, so yeah, so psilocybin was being put into different experiments. Why do you think on both sides, marijuana, psychedelics, acupuncture, why are there aspects of medicine from your perspective that never get the attention that they should get until finally it just becomes too apparent and by too many people that are qualified to make claims and studies then of course are being attracted? But give me your opinion on that.
Well, that's a very broad question. I think it's hard to answer because it's hard. There maybe isn't a clear answer, to be honest. I do think that there's always some stigma, and some of that stigma I think is rooted in just conceptions about how medicine, I guess, is supposed to work. Some of it maybe is we don't understand how acupuncture works, that people are not informed. They don't read the scientific literature. And even with the psychedelics, I think there only recently has kind of been this understanding of the default node network, which is believed to turn off when somebody is in a high dose psychedelic experience. And that kind of shuts off an area of the frontal cortex that regulates the ego or the personality, and allows them to be a part of like a collective experience. People report these experiences of feeling like they're more connected than ever before to the earth, to a community, to a communal consciousness, which is a difficult concept even to define. What is consciousness? I mean, what are we even talking about?
Yep.
So these are really abstract concepts, for one, that I don't think fit into a narrative of objective science, the way we understand it. So I think that's part of it, but there might be other explanations as well.
I always like to hear from people that are in it who really believe the science and the research, and you're doing research, you're seeing application. Part of it getting accepted is being able to bring people together that are scientists, that are physicians and pharmacists, to come together and give each other information. And that's exciting. Talk to us, Krut. Talk to us about the Psychedelic Pharmacists Foundation. Andy, give us an overview of this.
Sure. So it's going to be the education side of the PPA. It's launching on June 20th, so that's pretty exciting. That's just coming up this weekend. And it's really going to dig into some of the really important missions to the PPA, but do it in a way that we can do that 501c3 status also. We're really excited about educating folks and collaborating with other organizations to bring that education to as many people as we can. Did you have anything else to add in there, Colby?
Well, June 20th is World Psychedelics Day, so we're timing the launch of the foundation for that day, and this has been something that has been in the works for a long time, so we're excited for advancing this.
Yeah, the art of public relations and insight and curiosity and communications is different for the medical professional that wants their career to last, and they want to be connected and they want to be respected, backed by science, backed by evidence. Even if you disagree, I love listening to podcasts where we have providers that are respectfully disagreeing with each other on different concepts, because it helps you to stretch on either side of that, so you can really invest in continuing education on that subject. So talk to us about the opportunity. So if we're a pharmacist, we're very interested in this. We joined the Psychedelic Pharmacists Foundation. What are your plans for the interconnection, not only the national presence, but also in your own state? What are you guys planning to do?
Every state is kind of approaching this differently at this point. We have very much a patchwork network of state regulations, and it's interesting. I know Ben Malcolm with the Spirit Pharmacist, he mentioned to me that, this is the great thing about democracy is that.
Sorry.
Oh, is that really states are rolling out with all of their own individual policies, which is exciting depending on how you think about it. States are kind of the laboratories of democracy, and our constitutional model where states are allowed to experiment a lot and try new things, and that's confusing maybe to someone who's from Europe or not in the United States, but that's the way we've chosen to address this so far. So we're getting all these little experiments, like Oregon being the first state to really roll out psilocybin for medicinal use. And they've had some, challenges with that, and there's some maybe areas they could do better. And other states are going to copy that and continue to move forward. Ibogaine is one that really has become popular among different states around the country in terms of advancing research on Ibogaine. But I don't want to spend too much time talking about that today, but definitely there's a lot of policy initiatives at the state level, and we're just trying to plug in with the Psychedelic Pharmacists Association so we can share expert kind of testimony and provide scientific evidence for policymakers and for key decision makers, because we don't necessarily say that, again, we're here to lobby one way or another on a specific issue, but we want to make sure people are informed about the issues.
Andy, what are you seeing at the state level in acceptance and people talking about it, other pharmacist interest? Are you seeing an opportunity, let's say 2 to 5 years into the future? Is there an opportunity for the future pharmacist to become an expert in the science of how to apply the psychedelic, component of microdosing, or however it works? But what do you think about that?
No, I think that there's roles now as we move into a broader community. I think we'll see especially movement into specialty, because we think these entities that are on the horizon of potentially seeing FDA approval will probably see some sort of REMS to follow up with it. If we had to venture a guess, we don't know until it comes out. So there's definitely going to be pharmacist roles, and the PPA is very passionate about advocating for that pharmacist role there. The PPF is going to be more so that we can talk about the science of psychedelics and really inform whomever needs to be informed about how those are working in language that they can understand, which is what pharmacists do best.
Absolutely. Amen. So there are associations, there are conferences that are already out there that are touching on this. Pain Week, for example. Dr. Mark Garofoli, he's known as the pain guy, and he has done so much work just in pain that now he's being asked to speak at the Pain Week, which brings all these pain specialists together, whether it's a physician or somebody in surgery or chiropractors or whatever it is. But what an opportunity to show leadership in how medication is impacting, different types of pain, different, what you're going through. I see no different in that, Colby, than with psychedelics, and having a pharmacist know, hey, here's the situation. This woman just had a baby, and she's 6 weeks into being a new mom, and she's going through massive depression. Okay, that's a real thing. How could science that has been, people have been doing research specifically on that, and now you have a pharmacist that could say to the family, to the husband, to the counselor, hey, let's do a microdose of the blah substance, and let's make sure that she's doing this, and this, and start out real slow, and then see how that changes that experience as a new mom. So I can't wait to hear from you guys on what you're working on. Give us a little piece of stake here, and give us something that is happening, like anything that you hear that's percolating out there, Colby, that's an exciting application.
Well, one of the biggest, well, I should say one of the drugs that's furthest along right now in the clinical review process is COMP360, which is a particular psilocybin product that's been marketed by Compass Pathways, and that is hopefully going to be approved by the FDA perhaps this year. It's been granted priority review status, and President Trump has made it a priority, through an executive order. It came out a couple months ago to really try to get these products out to market faster, recognizing an area of unmet need for patients in mental health space. So this particular product does seem to have a lot of promise for treatment-resistant depression. I see the website is up on screen, but we're looking forward to that potentially being approved, and really training clinicians is going to be a very critical piece of this process. The Psychedelic Pharmacists Association actually had applied for a training grant with Compass Pathways to help to provide area of expertise to clinical sites to really get providers more comfortable with using these products and working with someone having a psychedelic experience. That a lot of competitive space for that grant. So fortunately didn't get it, but I think there's more opportunity really to provide training, not just to advance the needs of a particular product, but really understand for sites like how to implement using a psychedelic substance.
So I'm not sure. I can't remember if I've introduced you or not, Colby, but have you heard of Dr. Korn and Dr. Fisher Korn? They're a married couple out of the state of New York, and they have been researchers of cannabis in application in different research or different tests. But do you know the Korns, Stephen and Meredith, up there in New York?
No.
Okay, so the Korns, they've done this, like I said, actually it's been over almost 25 years. And the course is now accepted in, I want to say 24 of our 50 states as the provider's course for, the entry into different applications of cannabis in education. So what excites me about that is now it's getting massive attention at the state level. Health and Human Services in each of those states and now connecting to the Korns for follow-up education, application to specific issues. I want to see this happen in pharmacy, in pharmacists, where the pharmacists are now kind of like leading the coupling of all of that, because it's other association, it's the politics of it, it's the expertise, it's the data follow-up. It's reaching out when a state representative reaches out to the association and say, hey, we'd like some quality information on this, this, and this. That's exciting. So that's why I want to get more attention around what you're doing, the Psychedelic Pharmacist Foundation. And then we have to have both of you back. We want you to dial into some maybe application discussions, maybe something in depression or mental health or something, but promise us you're going to be back on TWIRx.
Yeah, thanks for having us, Todd.
All right, Andy.
Sure, thanks so much.
Looking forward to collaborating more.
You were a 2-timer. You'll be a 3-timer. We'll just keep this going.
All right, sounds good.
Hey, we'll be right back with more TWIRx.